I'm Luca and I make videos about what it's really like to live with Tourette's and ADHD. So I have Tourette's and I just found out that Lele Pons also has it because she made this YouTube series. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to react to it. Big disclaimer, I know who Lele Pons is, I've seen her face and I know her name, but I've never seen any of her content. And so if there's any drama or any controversy, so if there's any drama or controversies, so if there's any drama around her, I'm blissfully unaware, okay? I can only comment about the Tourette's part, so maybe that's going to provide some interesting insight, who knows. I just watched the very first beginning of the I Have Tourette's episode and I was very confused, so I think I'm just going to have to watch the other episodes as well. We'll see. Okay, let's go. Yes, I'm drinking Diet Coke at 10 o'clock in the morning. It's one of those days, don't at me. Okay, so I'm just scrolling through the first comments on the first video and I'm already seeing some stuff and I have no idea what I'm getting myself into. I'm extremely sorry that you have to experience this, but mental illness is not an excuse to behave poorly towards others. Like, obviously, it's not. And I hope that's not what she's going to be claiming in this video. We'll have to see. So I'm scrolling through this first comments on the first video and I'm already like, oh my god, what am I getting myself into? We live in a culture where we all play this game to see who is the most oppressed. It's the opposite of gaining power. Really? To talk about your issues or to... I think it's important that we're all able to talk about both the good and the dark sides of our lives, our struggles as well, because they shape the person that we are. So, oh god, what am I getting myself into? Okay, well, whatever. So let's just get into this. So yeah, that's what I wanted to say with the other comment. I mean, nobody has a perfect life, and I think that on social media we feel this pressure to perform and to have this perfect life, and I have nowhere near the platform that she has, clearly, and I feel that pressure. I mean, you don't want to be a downer, right? So I think it's good to show that you're not perfect, because you have people, especially with a platform like that, you have people looking up at you and, you know, show your truth, even though that can be very scary. So, you know, I'm excited to see what she has to say. Okay, so I don't have OCD. I know many people don't have it because, as I explained very briefly in my personal Tourette story video, up to 85% of people with Tourette's also have something else, like ADHD, like me, or OCD, autism, anxiety, stuff like that. So I've seen it a lot and it's really rough, and it's such a weird disorder because on the one hand you can do so many things, but then all of a sudden stuff starts to happen in your head and you have to perform these rituals, even though some you know that they don't make sense. You don't actually believe that if you don't, you know, switch the light switch 3 times that the world's gonna end, but somewhere in your brain you're so scared that you have to do it. So that's a really rough thing to live with. So, you know, it's sad to see. So, and I think it's good to see that representation of what it's like, because, you know, that's a hard thing to show. So yeah, I mean, cool. Okay, so she also has ADHD. So to some people that might sound like a big list, like, oh, so you have all these things, but that's really common to have a combination of Tourette's, OCD, ADHD, and depression as well. It's a very common mixture of things. Many people will have a combination of all these diagnoses. Okay, yes, so triggers. Again, I don't have OCD, so I can't really talk for people that have it. With Tourette's, it's also the same. Like, there are triggers. Tourette's isn't always the same. OCD isn't always the same. When you get triggered, when you get past that point, it's really hard to stop it. And there are ways to cope, and there's therapy and stuff like that. But, you know, it's hard to live with because it feels like you can, it could, at any point, it could just happen, and that's scary. So, yeah. Yeah, so that's something that really bothers me as well. When people say, oh, I'm so OCD, or I'm so anxious, I'm so depressed. No, I mean, there's a difference between being a bit organized or being sad sometimes. That's not the same thing as having that disorder. It can give you some sort of a metaphor of what it could be like, but these disorders, they're much bigger than just liking to have your books organized by color, which clearly I don't have, by the way. I mean, I'm really messy, but yeah. I think that's really good that they said that. The way that her brain processes things and expresses things is different, and I think that for many people with a neurological type of disorder like ADHD, OCD, Tourette's can relate to that, and that can be really difficult when growing up because you notice that you're a bit different, but it can also be a good thing. Many people with ADHD, OCD, Tourette's, they are very creative, they are quite insightful, very social. So there are some good parts to that, but coming to terms with that is something you have to learn, and sometimes you need some therapy for, and it's not as easy for some as it is for others. And that doesn't, of course, excuse doing bad things, but it can explain why it takes more effort for some people to understand exactly why they do stuff when they do stuff, because the way other people learn these things is not the same way that we learn these things. So it might take us a bit longer. So it's good to say that. Yeah. An epidemic. Oh wow. Wait, when was this made? I mean, epidemic kind of has a different type of connotation now, right? Epidemic of mental health issues. I'm not sure if OCD and ADHD are caused by the situation in society right now, but I do think that the pressure is much higher for people that are not neurotypical to perform in the way that neurotypical people do. So it would express more, but that's just my theory. I think there needs to be more support and more coaching, more therapy for people that suffer with these things, and more room for people that are not neurotypical to just live their lives, because I think that people with, for example, ADHD or autism, for example, have so many great assets that if they have to conform to the neurotypical way of things, that maybe takes away from some of these great assets, and then, I mean, they are missing out and the rest of the world is missing out. So again, I don't think it's an epidemic. I just think there's an attitude towards it that's just, you know, not always the best. So, but I hope that some good representation and all representation maybe can help shift this view that people with mental illnesses do not necessarily need to be cured in a way that they have to be able to conform to a neurotypical viewpoint or neurotypical way of living. There's no use in that, and I think that's the whole epidemic. It's just the attitude towards it. But yeah. So medication is important. I don't know, without my ADHD medication I would not have a career in any way. So oh well. Imagine. Okay, so now I don't think you can be diagnosed with both ADD and ADHD. I think it's now just called ADHD. So that's something that's really hard about getting therapy for OCD, is to be able to cure or to alleviate some of those symptoms. You have to go through them. So you have to face what scares you the most, and that's very hard to do. But as you do that, and as you experience that, the anxiety will go up and it will go down after a while. You will learn that your brain will start to understand that nothing bad is going to happen. So that's why exposure therapy like that really helps. But it's not an easy thing to do, and it takes a long time to do it. You can't do it kinda. You have to, really commit. And yeah, really cool that she would show that on camera, because that's real fear, really. So yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about, with that. In one way, your disorder can be so debilitating because you're different and you don't communicate the same way as a neurotypical person does. But doing that, she has learned, I think, probably, how to be very creative. She's a great visual thinker. Again, I don't really know her content. I don't know if she's done anything horrible again. But it shows how having a disorder can have two sides, right? That on the one hand, it's really debilitating and you're different and you're struggling. But on the other hand, it gives you so many talents and options to do something a bit different. And I think that's also important to see, that it's not all darkness. You wouldn't wish it on anyone. But if you already have it, then looking at the good things that come from it can also be a good thing. So yeah. Oh wow, I never crawled either. I should look into this. Maybe that's like an ADHD thing or something. That's so funny. Probably just funny to me and Lele's mother, but I never crawled. I don't know what I thought. I was really young, but I always say that I thought that wasn't a very productive way of moving forward, so I would just walk. But that's okay. So I was almost 20 minutes into that episode before I think she is actually going to start about the Tourette. So I'm just gonna go skip to that. I don't know if that was edited a bit weird, how they said that she has a couple of tics and then as a team they couldn't handle it. Handle what? Those tics? That's something many people don't talk about. They just talk about the tics. And I mean, what they'll say to me often is that because I can hold my tics in very well at work, for example, they're like, oh, aren't you glad that you don't have a very bad case of Tourette's, or that you have it very mildly? And sure, I mean, I don't have the worst case of Tourette's, and it's not a competition, of course. You don't see the stuff that happens on the inside, and it's exhausting, and it hurts as well. I mean, my hands hurt a lot. Hitting stuff, overstretching stuff, headaches, stuff like that. Muscles that start cramping, and those are the things you don't see on the outside. It's not as well known as the more obvious stuff, as just the tics, just the sounds. There's a lot that goes on the background when people are suffering with this. So yeah, and that's the thing, because you repeat emotions so often, at some point stuff starts to hurt. And the weird thing is that the more it starts to hurt, the more you need to do it, because, like, for example, when I squeeze my hands a lot, and my hands will start to cramp a bit, so I can kind of feel them. It's kind of like when you have to scratch something that itches, and the more you scratch it, the more it starts to itch, so you just have to keep scratching it. Something like that. So you can imagine, if you just keep doing any movement or anything just over and over and over again, it really, I mean, it starts to wear you down. Yeah, that's something that I do as well. Like hiding your tics. I don't think there should be any pressure on anyone that has Tourette's to hide their tics, but there are ways of doing that. So I can't really do it on command. So I do something with my hand that just becomes like, I'll just stretch, something like that. Yeah, the ways to kind of mask tics, and those can be great ways to to hide them if you feel like you need to, or if you don't feel comfortable having tics around people. But I don't think people should feel like they have to do that, because there's nothing wrong with having Tourette's. But that's a personal choice if you want to go on that route, of course. It's great to see that there's therapy that can help with that. Yeah, but so yeah, when I watch people have tics, I echo them as well. That's a very typical thing for people with Tourette's. So I always say that Tourette's is really contagious, but only if you already have it. So when you see other people having tics, you tend to echo them. So that's why I normally don't watch a lot of like documentaries with people that have very severe tics, or that have tics in situations that I normally don't have. I don't want to ruin that by watching too many videos of people that do have issues with that, and then all of a sudden my brain will be like, oh yeah, no, that's a good idea. But yeah, so that's why when I watch her having tics, I'll have more tics as well. That's something that surprises me as well, that even though I was hiding my tics all the time, people that spent loads of time with me, that know me very well, they were still surprised when they found out that I have Tourette's. And when they knew, they started to see it. But it's weird that if you don't know the context, people just won't notice it. To you, it will be very noticeable, especially when you watch yourself back. You're like, oh my god, did I do that? But people don't usually pay as much attention to you in that way as you think. Papa, Baba. Tourette's, it's not always the same. It can be triggered by certain things. So usually you have tics when you're really young, and they get worse and worse until you hit puberty, and then it gets better, but that's not always the case. So like for me, my tics got way worse when I was around, I think 23, 24. And then still I will have days that I have almost no tics, and some days they're really bad. And there's not always a reason for it, it just happens. Some people might think, looking at that, like, that's not so bad, why are you so scared, or why are you so embarrassed to show people your tics? I mean, it makes sense though, if you know that you don't have any control over what your body does, even though you can kind of hold it in, but it's such a fight. It's like your body and your brain fighting against you. And this is just an interpretation, I don't know if that is true, but you know, if you already have OCD, so you're kind of obsessed with having control over stuff, where you don't have control over something like your body, like your tics, then that's really scary. So I can imagine that for her, that's really tough to deal with. Okay, so that was it. That was less than I expected, I mean lengthwise. I think this was the whole episode about Tourette's. It's not that much, but I think the stuff that was said was very valid, very true. Again, so the information given wasn't as much as I kind of hoped for, I think. But they also showed the stuff that I was actually really glad that they did, such as the emotional side of it, the shame, and also the physical effect, the pain of having tics. So that was really good. As I think it's always very good if someone with a very big platform shows this type of representation of something like Tourette's and OCD that is still very misunderstood. So I like that. Again, I don't know nothing about the backstory. I don't know if there's anything else in the other episodes. If you know anything else, or if you have any ideas or comments, please leave them down below. Keep it nice though, I'm not here to extend any drama that might be going on. I just want to have a nice conversation about Tourette's, spreading more awareness. So yeah, thank you for watching. If you like this, maybe consider watching some of my other videos that will be somewhere around here. Maybe even subscribing if you want to. So yeah, I make videos about Tourette's and ADHD. I think this is enough for now, so okay, thank you, bye.